All right, we are live. Hello, Gun Nation. How's everyone doing this evening? We'll do a little roll call here in a minute, but I have the turkey's opinion on this evening. Welcome, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Good, great to have you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And kind of what kicked off this chat, and we'll get into it here in a little bit. And no throwing stones, none of that. Just just opinions. That's all we did. But he put out a video, and talking about comps and breaks or comps and ports. And I watched his video, and he had some points, and then I brought up some points, and we kind of had a little discussion on his video, in the comments, and that's what brought up, hey, you want to come on the chat? Let's talk about that, specifically and other things, and kind of get to know him. So we got DB in here, we got CZ Shadow 2, Lynn Holt, Pistol Pete, Dirt Track, and I'm sure there'll be more jumping in here in a minute. But I want to, go ahead and some people might not know you. I know we probably have some of the same followers, but some of my, family members here might not know you. So, and of course, for the replay on the chat. So go ahead and kind of let everybody know. And I want to know, because I don't know this, where did the turkey's opinion come from? Where did that name come from?
Gotcha. Yeah, I get that a lot. I raised turkeys, and my first video that I ever tried to make, the first couple videos, they would not shut up. They were in the background. And when I was editing things out, we were trying to come up with a name for the channel because it was an experiment to begin with. And we just said, these turkeys have a lot of their own opinion. They're overriding me. And we just said, let's call it the turkey's opinion because it was their video kind of. And then also along with that, we thought we just solidified it because when you look up, talking turkey, I don't know if you have that term where you're at, but we have talking turkey. Mm-hmm. And if you kind of look up what that means, it means to speak frankly. And that's what we do on our channel. That's one of the things that we're all about, is that we try to be as honest as can be. I call it a no BS channel. And we're not taking money from companies that give you rave reviews and things like that. And I'm all about letting people know my real experiences with firearms, not just what they want to see or what companies want them to see. I just try to spread the real word. So that's where it came from, but it was also backed up coincidentally by what we do.
Okay. And I've had a friend of mine tell me this. Now, I've never raised turkeys. I've shot turkeys, but I've never raised them. A friend of mine told me, he said, turkeys are some of the dumbest animals in the world because they'll actually, if it rains, they can drown in the rain because they hold their heads up. Is that true?
I've never seen it. Okay. Ours are kind of babied at this point. They get a really nice shelter. They'll stay in the rain. I've never seen one try to drown himself, but I consider them pretty smart animals, actually.
Yeah, and they probably are. He was just like, hey, in some turkey areas, you have to keep them covered because if they have direct rain where they're just sitting there, they'll put their head up and they can drown. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's true. Now, he could have been bullshitting me, I don't know, or BSing me, I don't know. But, I was just like, that's kind of weird. I've never heard that, but didn't know.
They do tend to look at the sky all the time because they're looking for predators. So we keep them amongst our chickens. We raise a bunch of chickens also, but they are always looking out for the avian predators, and they let the other chickens know what's going on. So they are pretty alert to looking around in the sky.
Okay, well, that makes sense. We've got chessboard in the house. We got Abigail, Rich B, Pistol Pete, and also if you want to check out his channel, I did pin the link in the description and in the comments. So to his channel. We got Mike High in the house. Skylar's in. And then, of course, Pistol Pete. Yeah, and Pistol Pete checked out your channel and saw a 1911 and 10 millimeter, and he instantly subbed. So good deal. But
a lot of 10 millimeter fans on our side.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I was going to talk about it because, only God and Thor can shoot 10 millimeters. So, no, I'm joking. But and I was going to ask, do you EDC every day?
Absolutely. I try to carry a gun at all times, including in my house.
Okay. And do you have a caliber preference? Like this is your go-to for EDC?
I would say most times I'd be carrying some version of 45 because I really am a fan of the just original 1911 platform. I carry my R1 quite often. I was carrying my Nighthawk for a while, but I'm not liking that gun so much anymore. I carry an M&P 45, but I'm not biased. I will rotate through a ton of different calibers. If definitely the 45 is the favorite.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big 45 fan. Carried them forever and still own them. And that's original God's caliber. We got to say that. That is, that's because
Absolutely.
God didn't make a 46. But I'm a big 45 fan, and I love 1911s. And I did want to get your opinion. I know, obviously, I see a lot of revolvers too. Do you EDC or carry a lot of revolvers as well, or not so much?
Not a whole lot. I shoot a lot. I have a lot. I like them a lot, but I tend to only carry one usually, and that would be my Model 69 Smith & Wesson Combat Magnum, and that's in 44 Magnum. That's a very
Okay.
comfortable gun to carry. Actually, I love to shoot it, love to carry it. So if it's going to be a revolver, it's most likely going to be that. I'll carry an SP-101 hammerless Ruger sometimes. That's for deep concealment that I won't snag a hammer, but it's got a horrendous trigger on it, of course.
Yeah, and people, always ask me all the time, why don't you show revolvers on your channel? Do you own any? And yes, I do own revolvers. It's just, my error, way back, I kind of grew up on 1911s and revolvers. That's kind of all we shot. That's pretty much all they had.
Right.
And then, of course, more calibers than the Glock. Everybody thinks the Glock's brand new. Shit, when did that come out? Like freaking 86 or 87 or some shit. So I'm, shooting way before then. And I grew up on a 1911. My grandfather had I've told this story numerous times, but in a Colt 45, pinned a hammer, pinned the grip safety. I hate grip safeties. I am an anti-grip safety guy. I hate them because my hands don't fit them, or 90% of them. And so I grew up shooting a 45, and that was the very first, other than a 22, that was the very first pistol I had, because I didn't even shoot a 22 pistol, shot 22 rifle, but the 45 was the very first pistol I shot. And I had to shoot a fence post, and I had to shoot it 6 times and hit it at least 6 times before he would, said he would even teach me to shoot more. So that was fun, and I did it, but I was kind of like, okay, figuring these damn sights out.
But that's a funny coincidence, because my first handgun experience was my uncle brought over a government model 1911. We went back and we shot a tree. It wasn't a fence post, but it was 45 caliber 1911.
There you go. Yeah. So hell, we got a bunch of stuff in common. We didn't even know it.
Oh yeah.
Because this honestly, other than just talking, chatting back and forth in conversation, this is the first time I've met and talked to Turkey's opinion in person. So, but and then as far as like, if you have to pick a favorite, okay, you got to pick a favorite. What's your favorite caliber in pistol? What's your favorite caliber in rifle? If you had to pick one.
I'm still going to stick with the 45 for the pistol. Okay. And for rifle, I'm going to go with 308, 7.62 by 51.
See, we have so much in common. I mean, I love 45. Now, of course, I carry a lot of 9s, shoot a lot of 9s, still love 45. But 308 is my favorite caliber. I have some shorties, I have some long ones, but I definitely love the 308. I know there's 6.5, there's 6.8, there's all these other ones, but it's like, 308 will get done. I mean, I'm not going to be taking, 1,000 or 1,500 yard headshots or any of that crazy kind of stuff. So 308 is good enough for me, and it's been around for a million years. So, and I've got tons of it. So it works very well for me. Now I had a question, because I had written it down about you, or for you. Have you ever shot CZs and stuff like that? I know you shoot 1911s and stuff, but have you shot any CZs or a lot of CZs?
Minimal. I have some experience in being in ranges, working in ranges, and doing some little bit of instructing and CCW coaching and things like that. So I've put my hands on them. I've pulled the triggers on them. I've looked at them, shown them to people, but no extensive shooting. Probably a magazine or two once or twice a year for a couple of years, and that was about it, really.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of people are saying, like Scott and Pistol Pete, everybody's saying, like their CZ 97 BD. I don't know if you've ever shot a CZ 97 BD, and that's just the DeCocker version, or the 97B, or yeah, 97. What is it, 97D or 97B, where it's the safety model, but it is a 45.
Okay.
And that's a fabulous pistol. I mean, it shoots really, really well.
Does it
It's kind
have
of
a
nice.
typical
Sorry.
CZ trigger on it and everything?
Yeah, and well, you can get the one with the safety, the side safety, or they have a decocker version. They have two versions, or had. They actually discontinued it. And it's kind of the 1911. It's got the front bushing. Where you can kind of fit it in there. So it is 1911-ish. I kind of consider it a hybrid, but it's characteristic of a 1911. But it is a super accurate pistol, super fun to shoot. They just don't make them optic ready. I wish they did. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. The next question going into that, have you shot optic pistols, or do you enjoy optic pistols, or have you tried them?
Oh, I might take heat for this one, but
No,
yes,
let
I
it rip.
have.
Okay.
I I'm tried. I have tried multiple times to get used to a red dot. I bought
Okay.
a SIG, uh, the TRP RMR
Yep.
one time, and that's a really expensive, really nice pistol and really nice red dot. And I liked it, except for I just could not get along with the small window of the Trijicon RMR.
Okay.
And then I got rid of that pistol fairly quickly. Since then, I've shot some Glocks at the ranges that had Vortex optics on them.
Venoms.
That's bigger window. I like those better. Had some fun with them. And I do own a XDM Elite 3.8-inch 10 millimeter that I put a Holosun 507C on it. So I have that experience. As far as getting used to them, I'm having a really hard time. I'm very scared to lose my ability on iron sights. And I know that I have to train red dot into myself. I've taken red dot classes. So I've gone through the class of doing it properly, and I feel like I'm breaking my ability on iron sights. So I'm really on the fence. I'm scared to do it because I don't really enjoy red dot carrying. I like to shoot it. It's very accurate. It's amazingly accurate, and I love shooting distance with it, and I totally see some advantages of it. But I always work in a very dirty environment, so I can't really carry one because I trash the optic constantly. Every time I pull it out, it's full of hay, straw, dirt, grass, mold. Whatever you can imagine is in there, and I just don't get along with carrying them well. So for now, I'm sticking to iron sights.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And I kind of fought it for like 3 years. I mean, I even, specifically only shot a dot for like 3 months off and on. And then I was just going back and forth this like 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago now, and I fought it. But what I had to get accustomed to was when you're looking through it, not staring at the dot. You're always target focused. So you're basically looking at your target and just letting the dot get in the way, and then pulling your shot, popping the trigger. So I did fight that for a while, but I'll tell you, with speed, heads up display, so to say, because you have all your peripheral. If you had multiple attackers, you're not focused on that front sight and doing all that, especially 1911 sights. They're freaking tiny as hell with my eyes.
Right.
So it really opened me up. Once I was just like, you know what, I'm doing it. I'm not farting around, and I can still go back and shoot irons, but I'm looking at it this way. It's like, this is the current, the future. There's really no going back anymore. I can still shoot irons, but honestly, would I just go back to shooting irons after I shot dots so long? No. And now every gun I get, it's either going to be milled for a dot, or it's going to be optic ready, and I can put a dot on it. Because I look at it this way: if you're a gun manufacturer making guns currently, if you don't put a dot, mill it for a dot and just leave a plate on it for the people who want irons, they can have irons.
Right.
But make it removable. I mean, if you don't do that right off the bat, man, I don't need you. I mean, it's like, come on, man, kind of get with the times.
Anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in that way, people can choose what they want. At least it's there. And if people are dot curious, they can screw one on there and give it a try. And, because I've heard people say, well, you can knock out the rear sight, and then you can buy the plate, that you put in the rear dovetail, and then have the optic way, this high on the top, and those will work as a piggyback. But when you're shooting those, they wiggle, your dot's all jacket, it's bouncing around, and it's just, they're okay, but you're going to spend some of those damn dovetail plates are like $70, $60. and you can get it milled for $125 on, some places. So it's like, what do you want to invest in? And some people don't like cutting up guns. So I totally get it.
Now, I
But
noticed you use a lot of those larger, like the P2 duos, I think they're called. A large optics. Do you co-witness any of your red dots, or you just strictly go red dot?
no, I've got a bunch of them that have co-witness, just taller suppressor
Okay.
sights on them. And I don't have any problems. But here's the funny thing. And a lot of people, because I'll run a green front fiber optic, with my suppressor, it'll have a green fiber optic, but then I'll have a red dot. And people will be like, oh, you got two different colors. And it's like, when you are target focused or threat focused, you do not even see your front sight unless you need to.
Gotcha.
If you need to, it's there. And here's another thing I'll throw at you. If my dot completely failed, battery went out, the dot's not working, even if the glass blew out of the front of it, say I have no glass in it, what do I still have? A picture frame.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to frame you and I'm going to hit you. I mean, I might not be able to hit you right there, but I'm going to hit you. So I just use it as kind of a field goal post because I've trained on them so long and so used to them. I know where the dot should be. So all I do is just frame it and just pretend there's a dot. It's kind of like if you include dot inclusion, you can put tape over your dot on this side. So you're not seeing through it, but it's weird how it works. But you can put tape. Yeah, this eye kicks in and it just kind of takes you right to it. It's weird, but it does work. And I've done plenty of that. So there's all kinds of things you can do. Let me give some more people a shout out. We got Reloading from the Hot Pot in the house. And again, this is Turkey's opinion. I've got his channel link in the comments and in the description. So y'all go over and check him out and subscribe to him. We got Lake Ozark guy in the house. And if y'all have questions, we're going to get to some questions here in a minute. So if I've missed them, Jamie is saying we're both old guys. Okay. Abigail wants a good Molly pouch for a can of Four Loko. Ooh. I'd pass on that one.
People were making Twisted Tea holsters there for a while.
Yeah. I've seen those before. I've tried that Twisted Tea. Being from the South, a lot of us drink iced tea and sweet tea and all that other stuff. I try to stay off the sweet tea, man. That stuff, whew, it definitely goes to my butt. Yeah, Scott's saying this, on the occluded eye shooting, your brain actually transfers from one eye to the other, for the red dot, basically. But yeah, it does work. We got Bald and Curious in the house. Bald saying Turkey's opinion. Who the heck cares what turkeys think or things? Right. He can't speak English. He's from Russia. He's really not. I'm just playing. I'm giving him shit. I've shot with him plenty of times. Super nice guy. Got Milkman in the house. But yeah, and I did want to let everybody else know, I did go to the Texas Gun Experience. That's kind of my home range. I went to their 4-year anniversary of opening. It was a really good turnout. They had Voodoo Gun Works there. They had a new company that makes the Apache 2011. I've got a video on it if you want to check it out. There was Kimber was there. So there were a bunch of Kimbers. They were showing them and advertising. SIG was there. There was some optic companies there, Vortex, stuff like that. So it was a really big turnout. A lot of people. I met 7 or 8 people, and some of the 7 or 8 people that I met, I even met parts of their family because they had their wife and kids there. So that was really nice. A lot of people came up and said hi, and I met them. So that was cool. But went really well. They sold a lot of stuff, gave a bunch of stuff away. They had a bunch of giveaways. So that was cool. It was a really good turnout. But have you, and I know I did want to ask you this. I know you like 45 and some of the bigger calibers, but what is your opinion on 9mm?
I have very mixed opinions on it. But I guess being 100% totally honest, I don't like to carry it unless I have to. I kind of almost feel like with 9mm, we've gone away from, of course, 45 is the traditional. It's what I like. 357 in the revolver. To me, 9mm feels like 38 is the 357. So I kind of almost think we're accepting a minimal standard with the 9mm. I don't know if it's just something up here, if I just have to be stubborn. I just noticed this huge trend towards 9mm, and it almost spooks me that we're going to get away from all of the other calibers. And it's, if you think about it on the chart, ballistics, elevation, and all this power wise, power factor, stopping power, all the things you want to talk about. Most people argue in the gun shops about what caliber is better. I think it comes down to, I go with foot pounds of energy. That's just kind of my major thing I base a lot of calibers on. And I don't like to go really below anything 40 caliber. I think that's kind of riding the edge. I like 40 and 45 ride pretty closely. I really do. If I carry 10mm a lot, I prefer to carry something in the 10mm range, 357 Magnum range. When we get down to 9mm, I just feel like we're accepting a minimal standard, because if you look at a lot of law enforcement and the military and people in general, everybody shoots the 9mm out of cost effectiveness, but also shootability. And it's almost like the all-inclusive caliber that everybody can get along with. And at that point, I just think that there's a lot of us that can probably use a little bit higher powered round, and maybe more of having one shot stop capabilities instead of multiple shot and having to carry all that extra capacity. I guess I just kind of have this continuous almost battle about it. I don't really even know what it is. I don't know what motivates it so much, other than I like bigger guns, bigger calibers, bigger power, and I'm willing to have the trade-off of less capacity and less ability for follow-up shots and things like that, because I just feel in my mind something about the one shot stop, maybe two shot stop, something like that. 9mm, I just feel like I see so many incidences and videos where 9mm is actually not effective on target. It doesn't put people down immediately, and it just seems like there's so much spray and pray with it, and it just kind of gets to me a little bit.
Okay. I mean, I can see that point, and I agree with you on the caliber. And I mean, I know that there are hotter calibers and all the other stuff, but where I go with nine, and I will say this, whether you're shooting a 25 ACP 22 or a freaking 460 Casull, it comes down to target placement. So, if you're going to hit them in big old fat meaty areas, I mean, whether you hit them with a 45 or whatever it might be, they might still be coming after you. So if you hit them in the T zone, or thoracic or somewhere where it's going to shut something off, that's what you're going for. Unless you just have to dump it in their chest, do what you need to do. But I kind of, the reason why, and I like other calibers, but the reason why I like 9 is it does have a higher capacity, usually, so I can have more rounds on hand. And then also with target placement. And again, if I had multiple people I'm dealing with, just for example, I had a little situation yesterday. I'll tell the story if people want to hear it later. Had a little situation yesterday where if I would have had less, ammo in the gun right then and there, I wouldn't have felt as confident, I guess, as I felt when I was in that situation. Because with follow-up shots, and you've probably done this with your 10mm, you're 7, 12 yards or whatever, and you're popping one off, but then you're doing like, say, strings of 2, strings of 3, whatever it might be, double taps. You're going to have definitely more rise, where if you can just really crank down on it and just, the gun's just not moving. And, you're just pumping, you're making them a strainer, basically, is where I'm going with this. I feel pretty good about that. And if I had to do it with a 22, I would do it with a 22, but I wouldn't feel as confident because, of course, it's rim fire. It's not center fire. But, I think, especially with how modern ammo has risen, where it was in the past, it was crap way back in the day. I think it's more effective than it was with effective hits, so that's kind of where I stand with it. There's no wrong or right. I always tell people, carry what you want, what caliber, it doesn't matter to me. We all can't carry 12 gauge buckshot or 12 gauge slugs. If we could, we'd cut people in half. So that's a whole different ball game.
In which
But yeah, I mean, go ahead.
you mentioned about the bullets. Now that Lehigh defense type of bullets come out, where we have these solid coppers, these things with these incredible bullet designs, yes, 9mm is definitely has the ability to do what it, what people want it to do. So yeah, I definitely give it that. Even 380, there's some loadings in 380 that will definitely get the trick done due to the new types of rounds that we have. And yeah, they have come a long way with it for sure, with just bullet technology in general.
Yeah, because I remember, and this is, I've had the 380s. I used to be able to go to my butcher and I could get frozen pig heads, because back in the day, nobody wanted pig heads. Now everybody buys them, so he makes money off of them, so he wouldn't just give them to me. Before, he's like, hey, you want 15 pig heads? Wow. That was way before YouTube. I'm like, hell yeah. And so he'd freeze them and I could take them out and shoot them as they're frozen. And I would shoot 380 and I would just, it'd go in like that. Now, granted, it's a frozen pig head. So, it'd go in like that. And I'm like, okay, this isn't crap. So, and that was with a hollow point. So then I would shoot a full metal jacket, which you're going to get deeper penetration with. And I'm like, man, if I carried a 380, I would make sure it was functioning correctly. But if I was carrying a 380 today with a thick jack, you don't know what people are going to be wearing, different clothing. So that's where I would probably, even with a 380, still carry full metal jacket.
Yeah.
I mean, I would. And I've even said this before, in a lot of my backup mags on the 9mm, I'll have hollow points in the pistol, but in the backup mag, I actually have full metal jacket. So, because if you've got to go through a car door, if you've got to, take on a little more barricade, you're going to have better luck with the full metal jacket than you will the hollow point. So,
you're right.
I think it's, and it's not like you're going to walk around with, hey, let me throw my vest on and I've got all these mags in there. I mean, I'm not going to get crazy, but I'm just saying, I think there's a time and a place for different types of ammo and maybe different types of calibers. But as you know, this with 45, and I know this, you got 230 grains of hate coming out of there. That shit's heavy. I mean, it's, you're talking about feet pounds. It's not a lot of feet pound. I mean, it is, but you know what I'm trying to say? It's slow as shit, like throwing a rock at somebody from a distance. So you're going to get a shitload of drop if you've got to take a farther shot than you will with 9. And I did something, this was a long time ago too, but I took one of those old Teflon frying pans, that's kind of thick. It was a T-foul or something. I remember the name because I kept looking at the back of it. But anyways, my wife was throwing it away. And I shot it with a 45, a 380, and a 9mm. And the only thing that penetrated it was a 9mm, because it kind of the 5.56, 223 speed kills, kind of effectiveness. Now, of course, the 45 left a hell of a dent. But, I mean,
I have the exact same experience with a small pancake air compressor when it was finally burned its motor out. Shot at it with a 45 repeatedly, and it just kept putting big scooping dents in it. And I hit it with a 9mm, and it smoked both layers.
Yeah. So, that's kind of where I kind of sometimes, because I'm the old 45 guy, I grew up on it, but I'm kind of like, maybe we can kind of get over here a little bit. I think with whatever you have on you is what you're going to use, and whatever you choose to. But, you could ride both sides of the fence, I guess you could say. There's pros and cons to both.
And I would just definitely like to add that I know that I'm at a deficit with speed and capacity. And I know that I better make every one of my shots count. I do have a little bit of, I ride a lawnmower all day long. I'm a landscaper, and that's all I do is just mow lawns, and I have endless hours to think about things. And I do doubt myself sometimes. I wonder if I'm making the right decision or not. And I might switch. There's always a possibility, because to be quite honest with you, one of the first times I ever shot a red dot, I just took a rental off the shelf at the range I was working at, loaded up a whole magazine, basic ammo, and I went out there, and for some reason, I was inclined to just rip it as fast as I could. And amazingly, at about 25 feet, I had a great group like that, and I burned it down as fast as I could. And I never was able to replicate that, but I was like, wow, a red dot on a 9mm Glock. Holy crap, I've never done any shooting like that before. And I never forgot that. So there's a possibility I'll make a switch one day.
Yeah, and I'm, whatever you choose to do, but I'm just saying, and you and I were kind of talking about it, or I made the comment about it a little bit, and I know that you shoot irons and you want to be as accurate as possible, but with accuracy, like pinpoint accuracy, you're giving up what? Speed. I mean, so you're like going bing, getting perfect sights, bing, you're shooting bulls for bullseyes. And I used to be that guy. I wanted to shoot those little teeny tiny, I put 10 shots in one hole that big, the size of a dime. But I pretty much told myself, I'm like, get out of that mentality, get away from that, because in a real situation, I'm not going to be like, hang on, dude, bing, bing. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to be like, as I'm trying to get the hell out of there. And also look at it this way. Yeah, I can put, 10 shots right here, or I can put 10 shots right here. I mean, I would rather have a strainer than something he can just plug up, so to say. He can put a chest seal or stick his hand on it and still be in the fight. But if he's leaking everywhere, or in the face, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So, but there's no thing, or there's no, wrong or right. It's whatever people think whatever they want to do. But, and then here's, as far as 10 millimeter, I get asked this a million times on comments. You can go into just crazy videos or whatever I've done. And it's like, you need to be shooting a 10 millimeter, 9 millimeter ain't shit. You need to be shooting a 10 millimeter. And people think these are some of the newer shooters or the younger people who have just experienced 10 millimeter. They think it's new.
Yeah.
And it just came out. They don't realize it's been out since 1986, literally. Right. And I've owned 3 of them. So I have nothing against 10 millimeter at all. It's a great caliber, but it's just like 45. It has its, 45's been in the dump, and then all of a sudden it'll shoot back up because somebody comes out with a new 45. And a lot of people are coming out with more 10 millimeters. So it's been on the upsurge here recently, like within the past, year and a half, 2 years, it's had another surge. And people are making more plentiful models and things like that. So I think that's a great thing because it's more ammo. It's more people are making it. It's getting more into circulation. But people ask why I don't have a 10 millimeter currently. And the way I look at it is I have multiple calibers, and that would be, and I still have 10 millimeter ammo. I still have a lot of it, but I just don't own a 10 millimeter anymore. But that's kind of the reasoning behind it. If I had to do those quick follow-up shots, I'm not saying I couldn't do it. I couldn't just do it as flat, like really popping them off. And, that's kind of where I was going to ask you, have you really just loaded up a 10 millimeter and just went to town as fast as you could and looked at your target? Like, hey, I'm going from here to here or here, and I had a lot of passovers, or, have you ever tried that personally?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have ability to shoot on my property, so I tend to go out there often, and I have done it. I have my serious shooting, and I have my bullseye shooting I like to do, but I do practice, and I go to many classes. I go to a ton of classes, and I have to keep up with them by far because they're already breaking my chops about having 10 millimeter and 45 and 1911. So I've done my best to keep up with everybody, and I hold my ground pretty well most of the time. With a 10 millimeter, let's just use that one. You do have the tendency sometimes to, as you're shooting, if you're going to shoot a bunch of shots in rapid succession, you will start to progressively dive into that trigger a little bit, anticipating the recoil. So as long as I can stop myself from doing that, I generally do pretty well. It's going to be nowhere near like it is with a 9 millimeter, nowhere near like it is with a 22 buck mark or something like that. But I tend to keep my groups pretty well, but I also cadence myself. I do adjust my speed until I get a sight picture. I don't take the shot. The people that I have shot with and the people I've actually had to work with or still train with today, it's all about accuracy, then speed. That's just kind of the way I've evolved into it. So it's hard for me to come out of the accuracy zone. I make sure I get the proper shot and take it and I allow myself a little bit of slop, but not a whole lot of slop. So
Yeah.
I think that I do pretty well with 10 millimeter, um, 44 and things like that. That's a whole different story. But up to 10 millimeter, I do pretty well. I do very well with 40 caliber. I take that to class quite often. So
Yeah.
I think I do well. And especially compared to some people who just are not as good with 9 millimeter. So people who are very good with 9 millimeter and they go to class with red dots and they go to all the classes, they'll smoke me, absolutely smoke me.
Yeah.
Um, but I run a close second.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I was just asking that because I've had friends of mine who have had 45s, 10 millimeters, and, they'll be like doing the bullseye, like bang, bang, bang. And they're like, hey, check out this group. I'm like, man, that's a great group. And then I'm like, hey, really rip it. Just get a new target, just rip it, see what you can do if you had to shoot super fast. And then that's when it, like the freaking wheels come off everything, and they
I,
got shit like over the head and all
yeah,
that. And,
I've done
you
it
know,
on steel, and you'll end up with a pretty good group on steel, but you'll have your occasional collarbone or kidney shot. And
yeah. And I mean, you can have that with 9 too. I mean, shit's going to happen, but and then I'll hand them mine. And, these are not professional shooters. I'm not a professional shooter, and then I hand them mine and I'm like, now just let it rip. Here's 20 rounds, just rip it. And they're just like, da, 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 and then all of a sudden that big group goes from that to that. And they're like, holy crap. And I'm like, it does make a difference if you have to really, let it rip.
it
I'm
really
not
does.
saying that's what we're going to try for or whatever. But like where you were saying, hey, you want that one stop shot or that two stop shot and stuff like that. Sometimes, man, you don't know what you're going to do with adrenaline going. I mean, you could go
Yeah,
bam, bam, bam. You don't know what you're going to do. I mean,
yeah.
I've never been put physically in that situation. Hopefully, I won't be. But if so, under stress, I just want to, we might not, because, and like you were talking about with anticipation and things like that, I've seen people where they really crank down and then they're letting a gun rip. And the first thing that goes is their dexterity. It's like their finger just, they're trying to crunch down so hard for that recoil. And I'm not recoil sensitive, but they're just crunching down on it. It's like all of a sudden they can't pull the trigger right, or everything's going low left because they're hooking. They're just doing different things. And I think with a milder caliber or less recoiling caliber, I think sometimes that's where if you kind of went to the lesser side sometimes, I think that could help some people.
And it actually can be problem. But I consider 10 millimeter itself a problematic caliber for the reason of it's loaded all over the range, like the whole spectrum of loadings. It can be loaded at 40 caliber levels, 10 millimeter levels, or it can be loaded atomic 10 millimeter. So a lot of us tend to use lighter ammo to practice with, but then if you're going to load up with the hottest underwoods or double taps you can find, you might not perform very well with that at all once it starts going off in a bad environment.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and that could be with, I've shot some pretty hot 9, but I'm like, it's still 9. I mean, so I mean that doesn't phase me. And like this, you can get into like some crazy 460 Casull and 44 Magnum. You can get into some crazy loads, and you're like, holy crap, this thing's a freaking cannon now. So that's a whole different ball game. I did see part of it where what were you shooting when that thing was coming back at, or the revolver? What was that one?
The 500 Bushwhacker.
Yeah, that thing. Whew, that's a hammer.
It's a monster.
And it's good that you knew what you were doing, because you see the videos with people just planting them right in their face, breaking their own nose or doing stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't have shot that.
A lot of people thought that I was going to tap myself, but you can't really see the angle that it's going over to the side.
I saw it. I could see it. It was coming. I know. I was like, he knows what he's doing, because man, I've seen people just bam. Yeah. You want to take it to the left or the right.
The first shot I took on that gun, I was like this. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you don't. That's like I've shot some pretty crazy rifle rounds too. I've had a friend of mine reloaded some 308 for me one time, and he's like, because I've got some light 308s, and he's like, this is a pretty spicy round, and but I mean, it's a rifle, so I was like, whatever. but I could feel a little difference, but it's not like it was flying around like it would be on a handgun, because you've only got, 2 points of contact where
Right.
you have 4 on a rifle. So a lot different. But, and if you have to pick, a brand of defensive ammo, what is kind of your go-to?
That's a good question. The most commonly bought by me over the years and carried in my guns is going to be Hornady Critical Duty. I
Okay.
like the supposedly barrier blind effect of it. It's got the polymer tip in case you run into some clothing stuff. It has relatively good performance in just about any caliber. It's kind of calibrated all to run into the same amount of ballistics gel, but whether like the 10 millimeter is loaded slightly weak, but the 40 cal is hot as heck. The 45 is loaded up to like 550 foot-pounds. It's pretty, and I carried in my 9 millimeters. I really like that. Second choice would be some of the hotter things from Underwood. I'll put into my things like 45 Super, 40 Super, 10 millimeter. I'll stagger it. I'll put the Underwoods up top, and then I'll start going into things like, well, I guess it'll always be Underwoods on top, but then I switch to things like hard cast and penetrators. But I like to use the XTPs loaded really hot.
Okay. Yeah. Hornady doesn't like me from way back in the day, because when they first came out with the polymer tip, way back when, I did a test on it. I bought 2 boxes of it, and I loaded up, what was it? I don't know, like 3 or 4 mags or something, or maybe it was 3 boxes, but I loaded like 3 mags in my FNS 9, and, loaded it in there. And anyway, all I was doing was just rapid shots, mag after mag after mag. Well, when I got to the second mag, the polymer tip, as it was going up, the feed ramp, it actually was melting because the feed ramp was hot, and all that polymer was melting, and it jammed the gun up like a drum. I literally had to pull the gun apart and scrape that shit out of there with a pocket knife. It was bad. And so I let them know about it, took pictures of it, emailed it to them, did all that shit. And they were like, "Oh," and because of me, supposedly this is what they said. They sent me this letter back like 2 weeks later. "Hey, we revised our polymer. We've done this, we've done that." And supposedly I was the first one that they said, I think I still have that email. I ought to post it. I just blot some stuff out of it because it's got my address and everything on it. But I probably ought to try to find that thing, because that was pretty interesting. But they said that because of what I had done, they changed their polymer blending. But then I was thinking to myself, okay, you made this ammo. You didn't run it like and that was only 3 or 4 mags. Yeah. I'm like, you always hear like SIG and everybody like, we put 5,000 rounds through this gun. And it's like, I know they're not using the same ammo all the time, but SIG would probably use their own ammo. And they don't have polymer tips, but I figured Hornady would be like, hey, we tested it. We ran it through a bunch of guns. We didn't have any problems,
And I believe the Critical Duty was actually part of trying to chase an FBI contract.
Yeah, it was. And so that's, because they were talking about clothing, going into the cavity and all that. And the polymer tip's supposed to, I don't know, break up. Yeah.
Well, that's good that you had that experience. You saved us the experience.
Well, that's just what they told me. I don't know if that's true. Like I said, I can't even remember how many years ago that was. But I still have the logo.
I'll give a warning about it though. Especially in 45 ACP, it doesn't have a very strong crimp around it. It will set back if you rechamber around multiple times. You will get pretty drastic setback on the critical duties and defenses. So be careful of that if you have it.
Well, and there's a lot of people, and I've talked about setback before. I've talked about it even on, like if you load your gun and rack it and you've got one in there and then you dump it and do all that. I've seen not just that, or you're talking about that one, but I've seen other rounds where they'll have setback and people are like, what are you talking about setback? And I'm like, man, you need to check it. I mean, some of them, it can be pretty drastic. Yeah. HST is not bad about it. There's a lot of Full Metal Jacket that is really bad about it. Like Blazer Brass, it's really bad about it. I mean, I've just done it at the range, like loaded it, racked it, and about to shoot and somebody start talking to me. Then I'm like, hey, let's recheck this. And I'll pull it out and I'm like, that looks weird, and it's like instantly, probably where they didn't crimp it well. But it is FMJ, but still you don't need any issues. But yeah, before we get into the meaty part of it, we're getting to it. We're going to get into the comps and the ports next, but just want to make sure, And I'm sorry if we've, I just want to really, let y'all know
Oh,
about Turkey's opinion. So if I've missed important comments, I know they're all important, but yeah, Pistol Pete says he gets the calibers out and checks for setback. And see, you can go that extreme, but what I do, I mean, sometimes you can just set them side by side, a new one and an old one, and all of a sudden you'll be like, holy crap. I mean, you can visibly see the difference. It can be pretty drastic sometimes. But let's get into the meat and potatoes. All of this, why I was like, hey, I want to have this chat is Turkey's opinion. And I did post the video somewhere. It's either in the description or wherever, but you can see it on his channel. He was talking about like, would you EDC, I don't want to take your words out of context, but would you EDC, your EDC gun with a comp or a port on it? And he had his opinion, and I wanted to hear that. And, you don't have to change it for the chat or anything. What was your opinion on ports and comps for EDC carry guns?
I flat out pretty much think it's a bad idea. I feel that there's a lot of potential safety issues. I'm kind of a freak about, I don't wear eye protection all the time like I should, but I'm kind of always worried about losing my eyes. It's probably the two most important things I have on my face. And I've noticed a lot of guns will throw a lot of flame out of the porting, and I've learned that actually it's more metal shavings can come out of there, also unburnt gunpowder gases. I really don't like the idea of eating that in the face. I don't like the idea of the flash behind it. There's the noise report. I forgot to mention that in my video, and a lot of people in the comments, they rightfully mentioned that it can get extremely loud. I know that there's revolver issues with leaking out of the cylinder gap also, but at least there's a top strap there. I'm just, and when I say about eating shrapnel and things like that in the face, or shavings of ejecta, they call it, it would be mostly during close combat fighting where you're very on somebody or someone's very on you, and you have something like a contact shot where the firearm is oriented towards your face. So I just think for a carry pistol where you might be in a position to get into a very close fight, maybe a struggle over the gun, it could potentially be a blinding situation, either by light or actual physical blinding.
Yeah. And see, back in the day, I was like, I won't carry a comp. I won't do any of that because kind of the same scenarios. But here's the way I look at it. And this is kind of, I've shot guns. I own guns where I've got doubles of each gun. Like I've got 2011s where they're 4-inch barrels. One has a comp, one doesn't. Got 2 P09s. One has a comp, one doesn't. P07, one has a comp, one doesn't. P10C, one has a comp, one doesn't. And multiple other guns. And I would actually test them rapid, shooting slow, doing all that stuff. And the flame thing, I get flash out of no comp. I mean, a lot of flash with the exact same ammo. I'm shooting the exact same ammo when I'm testing them. Not plus P, just, like HSTs. Sometimes they'll just flash. Sometimes, even with a comp, I really won't get that much of a flash. And sometimes I'll get a flame fly out of it. So it is what it is. But I look at it this way. If I have to, gut check somebody, you can gut check somebody and tilt it towards them. You can like aim it. You know what I mean? You're kind of coming in, where the barrel's down. So the flame is going to go into them as well. You can do things like that if you have to. Now, granted, I thought about it this way too. My wife is sitting beside me in the car. Somebody's breaking into her window. So I have to actually put the gun over and shoot, take that shot. And her face is literally right there.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So if you have to do that, I mean, boom, it's right there. There's all kinds of what ifs or this scenario or that scenario, but here's where I keep always going back to it is speed.
Yeah.
If I've got it, really, I mean, with a comp, even if it's minuscule and I've tested it, I mean, yes, I can monster grip. I mean, I got some big old paws. I can monster grip any gun and keep it flat, or you can put a flashlight on your gun to make it flatter because a flashlight is a freaking weight. That's what it is. It adds weight to your muzzle. So, and I knew back in the days, people would pull the CR123s out and they'd stack dimes in there or nickels. And I'm serious. You could,
it's a good idea.
Those guys that would shoot those guns, Yeah, those guys would be shooting those guns, and then they'd set their gun down on the YouTube videos, and you hear the ching, you know, the chains rattling around in their light. I'm like, okay, guys. They even make lead CR123 batteries. They actually have a lead casing around them, and they sell them, and they actually will light your light up, but it's not full lumens or full candela, and they're like $55. So yes, there's all kinds of tricks, but you know, you can put a light on your non-compensated gun. I do like lights on my guns, whatever the gun is, just in case the what if. I have light. I always carry a pocket light, but if I'm needing to do stuff, I'm not worried about, hey, let's do this too. You know, I want full control of that gun. So what I look at it is speed. And if it's going to even shave an instant off of it where I can hit better, I'm going to use it. And I even have them on 22s. A lot of people say, what the hell are you having on 22 for? When you're really, and I've got it on video, when you're spanking one out, you know, just really ripping it 20 rounds out of a 22. And I've got a comp on it. You can watch that comp and it is bleeding gas. I mean, I've got videos where it is just pouring gas out of a 22.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it would, but it does. So they actually work. I've heard of, oh, you're going to build up all kinds of lead in there. And then you're going to have, you know, the bullet's going to come out and it's going to be molten lead ripping your bullet apart. I've heard that too. But I'm looking at it this way. They screw off, you throw it in the trash, you put another one on there if it gets that bad. And you can pick them out with a little pick if you want to, but I don't really mess with it. I just shoot it and it blows shit out of it that it's going to blow out. But mine is strictly speed and just venting that gas out. You know, now when you start drilling into a barrel and now a comps and ports are different.
Yeah.
Comps, you're having all of your barrel, and then you're actually extending it by just a little bit for your screw on. So you're actually kind of gaining velocity, but then you're bleeding off gas. Ports, you're losing velocity because you're drilling into the barrel, depending on how far you go back. And you could lose between 50 to 75 PSI, you know, give or take. So there is a difference there. And also with ports, what I have found with ports, you know, a lot of them go sideways where it is going to eject it sideways. Yeah. But a lot of the comps that I run, it vents them up. And the way that they stack them, like you'll have like a 2-port comp or a 1-port comp or whatever. It kind of has like a little, it's kind of weird looking, but if they do them correctly, not just a slot going straight up, if they actually vent it correctly to divert the gas, if you have a particle come out, because I've actually had little pieces of jacket where I've seen them come out. I mean, you can actually see it when you're looking through your optic. You can see like little chunks flying out. And I've even got a picture. It's on one of my, it's on a still of one of my videos. You can just go and flip through my videos and see it. You can see these little, like they're like little swirly things coming out. And those are supposedly pieces of jacket where they're, you know, caught in the camera and they're like a swirly line.
Yeah.
So it's not a flame, it's a piece of jacket. But if, you know, you can gut check somebody and tilt it into them, that's cool. If you happen to catch some of it on your arm or whatever, it is what it is. That's the way I look at it. If I walk away, I mean, you know, you do outside work, you know, I rip myself up and got stuff happen all the time. But if it helps save my life or others quicker, that's kind of how I look at it. So, but I do prefer comps over porting. And I've had ported guns too. Now, as far as the loudness and the noise, honestly, I can't really tell that much difference. If you shoot plus P plus, you can tell the difference with a comp and a non-comp. But I'm not trying to be a but, you know, buck it up, buttercup. I mean, that's kind of how I am. I'm like, this is a purpose. And if I can use it for that purpose, that's what I'm using it for. So, you know, that's kind of where I come from. Can I shoot both and control both? Yes, it doesn't matter. But when you're really ripping them off, that's where they excel. And that's what I like about
them. When I made my video, I questioned whether it's effective on a 9mm or not. And since making that video, through the comments, your comment especially, and I'm actually talking to a couple of my friends just on the phone, they've advised me that, yeah, it does work on a 9mm. It's not huge, like you said, but it's perceivable. And so I do have to accept that fact. I've never put them side by side and tried it, but it's been reported that they do work. Where I didn't think it would matter too much on a 9mm. Never thought it would matter on a 22, but I'm hearing the reports that yes, it does help.
It does. And here's, where I look at it on a 9mm, I guess the easiest way to kind of say it is when if it, like, again, I keep going to the videos. I mean, you can just see it looks like a chimney. I mean, it's literally like it'll start there and it's like it's crazy. Every shot is like, poof. I mean, now that could be a flame or it could just be smoke or gases. Most of the time it's gases. But it's literally like a chimney. And that means all that it's just getting out of there quicker. And then that next shot can just follow it and not get hung, not be disturbed, because that's why I try to prove it to myself, because you can watch every video in the world and this guy's going to say this guy's going to say that. And I'm just like, hey, I want to prove it to myself. And that's why I have duplicates of guns, to where, guns that I really enjoy, I'll buy 2 of them, but where I can prove it to myself, because the proof is in the pudding, and it's going to be my particular, and the ammo in both. It's going to be my particular guns, my particular grip, my particular everything, because it's my scenario. But at the end of the day, it's my scenario. I'm not fighting. I mean, I'm going to help people, but you know what I mean? Their gunfight is going to be different from mine. I mean, I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just trying to say, I want to prove it to myself. Does it really matter? And I will say this, there are some comps out there, and I kind of said it earlier, but just because you slice little lines in it doesn't mean it works. And I have some comps where I have bought and paid for those things, and they are pieces of shit. They do not work. They're literally a little gimmick that this company made because they didn't do the research behind it to angle them correctly. They've just said, hey, let's just chop some lines in here and make it look cool. And that's basically what it is. It's just a little paperweight out there, and it serves no purpose. But you can get into Harrington, you can get into Threat Cadre, you can get into really good comps. You're going to pay more for them because they freaking work, and they put the engineering behind it to make sure it worked. They didn't just saw a bunch of lines in an aluminum thing and screw it on the end of your barrel. People will say, hey, they're going to come unclocked. They can do this. That's true. If you don't torque them down and don't use, your Loctite and stuff, that can happen. Or just over time, it can happen. But, I'm always on top of mine. I've never had one just turn off and start flying across the room or anything like that. So, knock on wood. I mean, everything's been good with me so far, but I've been shooting comp guns and enjoying them for pretty dominantly for probably three or four years. And I've just been getting more and more of them. And I'm even seeing, such as like the X Macro and, a lot of other guns are coming out with them. So if you can have just a tiny advantage, I say take it if you choose to,
And I like what you said about, people will say things, but I give you a lot of credit because you actually do it. You do have copies of the guns. You can only take someone's word on YouTube so far, and whatever your friends say or whatever the forums say, but you actually have done it. And if more of us need to do that, we need to actually do it for ourselves and not trust other people's opinions. Sometimes we need to just actually see what happens. You said put it on video. That's a big thing. I love it. It's a huge training aid. Just put it on video, because you can't perceive everything when you're shooting. But if you do that, then you have no way to deny it.
Yeah. And also I look at it this way, I'm proving it to myself, which is great. But, if Joe Blow shoots, he might not be applying the same grip pressure. He might be, loading his freaking light with 20 pounds of weight. I mean, we don't know what's going on in these videos. So I just think, and at the end of the day, it only matters what matters to you and what works for you. And I tell people this all the time, just because I like this gun doesn't mean you're going to like it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, hey, here's something I'm sharing with y'all. If you want to watch, it's completely up to y'all. Yeah. But the proof is in the pudding. I mean, it really is. And again, there's great comp companies and there's shitty comp companies. I I tested, I don't want to really drop a bunch of names because I'm not trying to hurt people's business, but there's a company out there and it starts with an S and they make a lot of cheaper products, budget friendly, I guess you should say. And I've tested them and they suck. And then there's one high end company that actually even makes 2011s and they make a comp and it sucks. It's freaking flat garbage. So, that's why if you can vet things for yourself, and the only reason I try to give examples of these things that I've used is because they work. If they do not work, I won't even show them on the video. I just won't. And another thing, this is one way to test. And I learned this from the Humble Marksman. If you're testing comps, get a USPSA cardboard target. And those little pasters that you stick over the little holes? Okay. When you hold a comp up to it about this far away and you blast it, if a comp is diverting gas correctly, your pasters will not blow off. It'll just you can sit there because what you're doing is you're rapid shooting that close to that target. So you're just going like that. If your comp is working correctly, you'll see a nice little tight circle because you're keeping it the same distance and the same flatness. So that's showing you that it's working. If a comp is a piece of crap or does not work, you do that to it and you have some pasters on there and you start shooting, the pasters will start flying back at you and your holes, because you've kept it the same thing, your holes will just be all over the place because It's not working. It's not diverting gas correctly. So
that's a cool test.
I actually learned that from him probably 2 years ago. And I was like, I mean, I didn't even believe it until I saw it. I'm like, I'm standing right next to him and he's showing me this and I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, that's crazy. I never thought to test it like that. So now granted, if you've got to do that or, really get in on it, yeah, you could get some of that stuff back in your face. That's going to be bad. But you got to think about it this way. If you're that close, you're probably just not going to have shrapnel coming at you and gases. You're probably going to have some fluids coming at you, if you know what I'm saying. True. So, that's going to be a bad situation too. So
I guess one thing I forgot to mention on it is that maybe some of what drives me and actually motivated me to make that video is that they could be useful. And if people want them, absolutely use them. I do think that there's been a push in the gun market to just go ahead and grab at the next thing that could be a selling point. So it's kind of almost funny to see all of these comp guns come out now. They've known about these things for quite a while, but now all of a sudden I think they've found a market. And I really don't like it when it's predatory marketing where it's, you need this, you have to have this. You're not cool if you don't have it, and you definitely can't operate like we do if you don't have it. So that is something I forgot to mention. A little bit of my motivation for it was, I don't know, we're going to all have to pay a little bit more money when these things come out. It takes research and development to make them and testing and then marketing and all that. So it does increase the cost of things sometimes. And especially if, like you said, if it doesn't even work, then that would be a problem. Now, if you buy a quality one, then that's a different story. But yeah, I don't like the predatory marketing is what I call it. Like they find the next thing that you just have to have.
Well, and I've said this numerous times on videos, and think about it this way. Don't think about it the way you're thinking about it. Think about it this way. Okay, say you've got a polymer gun. Okay, say whether it's a CZ P10C, a Glock 19, Smith & Wesson M&P, whatever. Okay, what can you do on that gun to make it any different from any other Tupperware gun ever made? Like if I buy this Tupperware gun, whatever brand, is it going to be better than a Glock 19 or a CZ P10C or a Smith & Wesson? Or are they all kind of the same? So basically what you've got to do is, here's the 1.0, here's the 2.0. Now we've added grip texture. Now we've added another front serration. Now we've done this, we've done that. So you're putting lipstick on a pig. It's the same pig. It's just got a different dress on it or lipstick on it. But, if I've got all these same guns and I've added all this other shit and now I can't add anything else, what can I add now? So it's just another model in the lineup to sell to the next person. That's all it is. So that's why people buy a Glock and then they Gucci it out, because there's so many options for Glocks. There's other accessories for a Glock or M&P or whatever it might be. I can take one polymer gun. I might have a preference with ergonomics or grip texture or something like that. But at the end of the day, they're all a freaking polymer gun. They're all going to shoot the same. And the mechanical accuracy is way more accurate than I am, honestly. They don't, back in the day, they had shit barrels. We all know that. A lot of them are garbage. So one gun could be more accurate. But if you bench rested all of them, you're going to probably get the same group with all of them. It's just what you prefer is your ergonomics, or you prefer a dot, or you prefer another serration or something. That's what kind of sets them apart, or brand. You're brand loyal to Glock or whatever gun, or you want every CZ made or every SIG made. That's why, SIG's coming out with a new model every week.
Right.
I'm not trying to beat them up, but good Lord, like they came out with a 365 rose to go after the ladies, because it's got rose on it, so it's all marketing. And that's the way I kind of like, okay, it's the same freaking gun. They've just made a different color or put a gold trigger in it or something. So I kind of, I don't go that route. But then again, and oh my God, I've heard it 1,000 times, and I call it regurgitating, because people will hear something from somebody in the gun store, like comps, and they will say, oh my God, that'll get you killed in the streets, blah, 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 blah. And then, this guy, I mean, I've heard the same shit, and it's like, this person just keeps regurgitating the same thing that they heard from Jimbo 20 years ago. I mean, you got to think about it with ARs. I remember, because red dots were the devil. Nobody should shoot red dots. I shoot my irons at 500 yards, 500 meters. I did it in the military, and I did this and I did that. Now, what does everybody buy today? The first thing they buy when they buy an AR, they buy a red dot. That's the first damn thing. So it's kind of like on a pistol, why would you not want another sighting device? I mean, seriously, if it's good and dependable and reliable, there's junk ones and there's good ones. I understand all that, but it's like something that could help you potentially. And here's where I go with dots. I forgot to bring this up. When you're looking at irons, you're kind of front dot focused, or you can, even kind of keep it fuzzy. But when you're with a dot, your head's always up, and you don't, you're not crouching down to your irons. You're bringing the gun up to your eye line. So what can you also see? All your peripheral, where you I can't. And I think 90% of the people, if they told the truth, they can't see all that peripheral with iron sights. So you've got more heads up shooting, and it's, I think that's why a lot of law enforcement, because I know I've got buddies who are on the, for my local police that I've known forever. And I'm like, when are y'all going to go to dots? I've been saying this for years. And they're like, hey, we're doing dots now. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because we have more peripheral. There's multiple attackers. We can see them, And I'm like, okay, makes total sense.
They can see what's going on with somebody's hands, and there's a lot more. I do agree that you get with iron sights, you are only focused on that front dot, and your world goes to a blur beyond that.
And you're less likely to turtle, you're just, if you shoot it right, you just bring it up to your eye line and you're good to go. There's all kinds of little variables, and I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to pass, just what I've learned since I've been doing it. Like with Humble and some other people, I kind of learned, and I fought it forever. But it's kind of like, once it kicked in, it's like, and I've really bought into it. I'm like, I'm into this thing. I see no reason to go backwards, only forwards. Not saying I still couldn't shoot irons. I can, but they're just, I'm faster, way faster with a dot. I mean, I've proven it to myself. And that's what I'm saying. If you got a timer and you want to prove it to yourself, once you kind of get in the groove, like if I go back to irons now, I'm super freaking slow with irons. Now, granted, part of it's my eyesight, but and I'm not saying I'm a speed demon, because I'm not, but if you haven't tried it and really, really tried it, not for a week or not for 2 days or whatever, but if you haven't really tried it, don't regurgitate what somebody else has said. Oh, those dots are worth, you don't know until you really put in the work. It's kind of like with any hobby, or, you're not going to go out and shoot a 76 the first time playing golf. You're just not. So That's kind of my opinion.
You
But
got a lot of valid points for sure.
yeah, and I'm not saying I'm right with all of them. I mean, that's why it's great to have somebody's differing or opinions, and things like that. It's good to kind of bounce things off of each other. Like, hell, I call friends. I'll be driving down the road. I've got these long drives, and so we'll be shooting the crap, and it's like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think? And we kind of bounce stuff off. Multiple, like Humble, Harry's, all these guys that are gun guys and that have a lot of experience. Some have less, but we all gain knowledge by listening to other people that we trust. There's a lot of people that will just say shit because they heard it in a gun store, or even on chats. I've heard some chats and I'm like, okay, I don't think this guy's really tried that, but okay, whatever, it's a free country. You can say what you want. And opinions are like butts. We all have one. But anything that you have coming up on your channel that and I did forget to ask you one more thing that I had on the list. As far as rifles, do you like to shoot a lot of rifles, or are you dominantly kind of a pistol guy?
I started out life as a rifle fan. I did shoot pistols throughout my whole life, but I've always liked the long guns. Shotguns are they mean a lot to me. I really like my single shot H&Rs, and I'm not really a pump shotgun, but I like my Mossberg 930, but I like my Mutant. My CMMG Mutant is a very fun gun for me, and I'm very good with it. I love that gun. I love my 308s. I'm getting more into bolt action. So yes, I really do love long guns. I'm not into long range shooting with them. I go up to a couple 100 yards, mostly 100 yards and in, but I do enjoy rifles quite a lot.
Yeah. And I like rifles too. And that's, one thing that I told myself, gosh, like a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, man, I'm gonna really start spending more time with rifles, because I catch myself sometimes pigeonholing, or I'll just be like, hey man, I love all these pistols and I enjoy shooting them, but then I'm just like, hey, I forgot about all these rifles, So I want to kind of, get back into the rifle game too, shooting AR-10s, AR-15s, 300 blackout, stuff like that.
It's become,
of course, 300 blackout
pricey game. Except for your basic AR-15s, it's getting pretty pricey to be in the rifle game.
It is. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. And, one thing in this, people always ask me, like, what's your most enjoyable rifle to shoot? I've had that question a bunch. And of course, I love 308. I love, not so much. I mean, I have it, but it's not one of my favorite, because I guess I could kind of say, 223 5.56 is kind of like shooting a 22. It's just loud. There's not any recoil and stuff. And I love 300 blackout, but probably my most fun rifle to shoot is 22. I mean, yeah. I've got an M&P 1522. I've got my Savage Precision. It's a bolt gun. I mean, I can, and it's got this 7, the thing, it weighs about 7.5 pounds, for a 22, like precision 22, and it's freaking accurate. It's crazy. Of course, with great Lapua Center X ammo, which is not cheap, but at 50 yards, and I've shown it many times, I can shoot 5-round group in a fingernail size, my pinky fingernail. Right. So, I mean, the thing is freaking dead accurate with Center X, Lapua Center X, which is like 15 or 18 bucks a box, or 20 bucks, but super fun, and it's super relaxing. So, I do like to just not shoot anything sometimes and just take it by itself and just, have a good time shooting it. So, I do really enjoy that. And I saw your turkey Tom thing. You were shooting those little turkeys, Yeah, I was going to say that's some little bitty guys right there, especially at 50 yards.
Yeah, that was a tough challenge, but that was using one of my favorite new platforms. Is that Ruger Precision rimfire platform is great. It's pretty heavy, but it's a really nice setup. I have a 22 long rifle and a 17 HMR, and that 17 HMR rifle is becoming my favorite rifle and my favorite caliber really quick. It sounds weird, but I really like that 17 HMR. It's fun.
And see, I've shot
chipmunks with that thing.
Yeah, and I've shot 17 HMR, but I've only shot it a couple of times. Like, it wasn't mine. It was a buddy of mine's, and I shot it. He's like, "Oh, you got to try this out." And I shot it. And I was like, "Wow, that is pretty cool," But I've never thought to like, "Hey, I want to buy one. I want to invest in it," because I'm so damn used to 22. But I know 17 HMR has a hell of a more benefit. But just don't have as much experience with it. And that's another thing. If I don't have experience with stuff, I will not bullshit you. I'll just be like, hey, I really don't know that gun
Yeah,
or whatever it might be. So I don't want to speak out of my butt. So I'll just tell you I don't know or don't have much experience with it or any.
same
So
here.
because I think some people just, oh yeah, I know all about that, and you're like, you really don't. But you know,
I sometimes I enjoy saying that I don't know to some of the questions I get because it almost lets me off the hook. The questions are very technical, and I think, oh my god, thank God I don't know about this because it's all it's less pressure
yeah,
not to know sometimes.
yeah, exactly. Because I look at it this way: you can only fib so long, and you're going to get found out. So why start fibbing now? I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. Just be upfront. But
Right.
because I've asked, I've listened to some things, watched videos. We all have, and I'll know what that guy's talking about because I actually own it or whatever, or I, shot it a lot or whatever. He's just kind of going off on this tangent. I'm like, no, that's not right. But I'll ask, I'm like, oh, what do you think about this? Or have you tried this on it? And they're like, oh, it doesn't have that. And I'm like, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So, just to see if they're really BSing people or not. But, is there anything, we're 8:15, I'm not in any hurry. I don't know about yourself. But, is there anything that you have coming up on your channel that you want to let people know about?
We
Or,
have been doing a lot of work with the 500 Bushwhacker, the revolver, but now we're kind of transitioning that over to the rifle version that we got. We ended up with a Thompson Center 500 Magnum that got converted to the Bushwhacker.
okay.
Same big old break on the front of it. It's just a single shot straight wall. And so we got a lot of testing with that coming up. I think that's going to be severely impressive. That thing wrecks multiple blocks of gel all at the same time.
Wow.
Um, so that's pretty fun. We've been playing with 400 Legend a lot. I got to do a little bit more hand loading for that. But 400 Legend really had a very soft release out there in the world. And we got our hands on an upper receiver. So we've been doing quite a lot of testing for a long time. I'm always doing my pistol testing. I have a lot of guns I need to show you guys as little mini reviews that I haven't got to. But the very next thing we'll have is 444 Marlin. We're going to focus on that pretty good.
I've never even heard of 444 Marlin.
Yeah, they a lot of people haven't. It's pretty obscure now. It's really hard to get the brass. They barely make any guns for it. The only guns I know of that they currently make are CVA Scout rifles and Magnum Research BFR revolvers. It was made to chase after the 4570 after they almost killed the 4570 off back in the day. They made that because people still wanted a high powered straight wall cartridge to hunt deer with, something comparable to 4570. So it really does have extremely comparable ballistics.
Okay. And I know you have like revolvers and stuff, but what is your, and I kind of like them, but what's your opinion on 460 Casull?
454?
I mean 454 Casull, not
Yeah,
460.
I actually really like that cartridge. It's extremely powerful. 45, so of course I love it.
Yeah.
But shooting it next to the 460, I shoot them out of the same gun sometimes, and it's very comparable as far as recoil. It feels like a 460 almost. It's close. So I do like that cartridge a lot. It's a monster.
Yeah, a buddy of mine's got one. I don't own one, but he's got one, and I've shot it multiple times, and I'm like, that thing's pretty damn cool. I mean,
People get
it's
them shoved into some really nice revolvers. There's some Freedom Arms revolvers, and there's some high end stuff that you can put that in, and it's shootable. It's packable. That's the thing about it. It's still at a size where you can pack the gun. Uh, take it with you. It's not you're not carrying a 500 Magnum around with you. You're carrying
yeah,
something reasonable.
yeah. I can imagine trying to carry a 500 Magnum. That'd be a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen the guys do the videos where they've got it like down, the long barrels. They've got it like down their pants legs, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm packing this." It's like, holy crap, thing's a
I've
monster.
carried it to Walmart before just to be that guy every now and then. When Walmart instituted their, remember when they try to say they don't want people open carrying,
Yeah,
I made sure that I made a holster. I don't have it in here anymore, but I made a holster for my 500 Magnum with an 8-inch barrel. I carried it to Walmart multiple times. I nothing but fan comments or like fun comments. Nobody gave me any flack. Everybody was like, "That is awesome. Keep doing
yeah,
it."
yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, hey, it's America, man. If you can carry it, do it.
Trust me, I had a real gun in case I needed it. That was just for show.
Yeah, I was gonna say that thing could be a hand cannon. One pull and everybody be running out of that store.
I wouldn't want to have to do it.
No, no. But that's going to be cool. I am going to start shooting more rifles, and depending on the weather, I'm going to try to get out to an outdoor range. That is the thing with me. My closest outdoor range is like, it's about like an hour and 15 minutes. So one way. So it's not super close. Put it this way. This would be an outdoor range where I don't have FUDs telling me, no, one shot perfect, shut up, leave me alone. So that good range is kind of a hike. So, but I am going to try to get, as soon as we get my dad squared away, he's still having some health issues. So get him squared away. And then I am going to try to get to the outdoor range where I can kind of do what I want to do. And what I've got some new lock products. They've been at the house. It was so bad with timing. They didn't arrive till Monday, and I left early Monday morning, but they've been there, and I'm just like, oh. So I want to get those on and get them checked out. But it's their new Jaws grips. These are supposed to be their most aggressive grips they've ever made, and they may draw blood. So I'm like, I'm excited about that. I want to try it and see. Hopefully it rips my hands open. But we'll see how that goes. But and I'm going to be going back to some of the classics. I was even going to do a review on my very first gun that I've had since 1986. I still own my very, very, very first gun very first gun I ever had in my life. So I still own it. So go back and kind of revisit it.
It's lucky you still have it. A lot of people have gotten rid of their old favorites and they regret it.
No, yeah, this one you can't. Put it this way. For what these are going for now, it's not like it's some kind of, it's not a, Ed Brown or Les Bear or anything, but, they're just difficult to find. And if you do find them, they look like they found them at the bottom of the ocean. So, mine is still in great working condition, looks great. I take care of it, but I'm not afraid to shoot it. I don't have any safe queens. So that is one thing. I'm not a safe queen guy. If I own it, I'll shoot it.
Got to shoot it.
Yeah, that where you pull it out. Oh, it's pretty. I'm just like, nothing wrong with that if that's what you're into. But I like to shoot my stuff. And I know we didn't get to a bunch of questions tonight. And please, after this chat, go over and subscribe to Turkey's Opinion. There's links in the description and the chat. So please, they're pinned in the chat. So please go over and check him out. And if we didn't get to your comments, I know there was a bunch of questions out there, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to kind of, had the opportunity to get him on and wanted to pick his brain about a bunch of stuff. I hope y'all enjoyed that, but leave the questions afterwards. I will answer them. And also Turkey's Opinion is welcome to come on and answer, give his opinions. If you got questions for him, this is for Turkey's Opinion, and leave your question. He can come over and answer.
Check it out.
Yeah. He can come over and answer away. That's not a problem. And y'all like and share and all that good stuff. We appreciate it so much. But and any closing, thoughts or anything you have, and we'll shut this bad boy down.
I really appreciate you having me on. It's been fun for sure. I enjoy your channel a lot. You got some really cool stuff that you shoot, and you're a no BS person. I like no BS. That's my biggest thing. I'm all about the honesty and sharing my experience, and it sounds like that's what you're on about. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, at the end of the day, you can BS your way through stuff, but the only thing you truly own is your name, and if your name's not worth anything, you're not good in my book. So that's the way I look at it.
And you end up with a good viewership that way. You're not bringing in people you don't want to be in your channel.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'll get the occasional guy that wants to come in and run his mouth and stuff, but I don't really delete people. All the comments are left on there, good or bad, unless they get a little crazy. And then I'm like, I don't want kids or, stuff like that to come in and look at that. But, sometimes they'll get a little insane. I'm sure you've had maybe a few of them too.
Oh yeah.
We all have that do videos, but, no, I'm sure we had some great questions. Hopefully those, some of those people will go over and leave more questions and we can get those answered. And I know on the review or relook at when it posts up, a lot of people will go in there and, usually have good comments and stuff. So we'll make sure and answer them up. But I really appreciate you coming on. I know this was kind of short notice, but when you did that video, I thought, man, this would be the perfect opportunity to hear people to hear both sides, or, just gather that information and do with it what they want. At the end of the day, it's a free country. Y'all can do what you want, carry what you want, be who you want to be. It doesn't matter to me.
For sure.
I just recommend carry something every day to protect you and your family, and just help keep you safe. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, and we will shut this thing down. Everyone have a great night. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and appreciate you coming on. I'll go ahead and let them go if you'll stay on, and we'll close this out. Thanks, everyone.
One more thing. Anybody that's followed me in here, check out Big Johnson's channel. He's got a really good channel.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks, everyone. Remember, our nation's a very weak nation, so we all got to carry on. Take care, everybody.